Welcome to episode number 75 of the Canadian Prepper Podcast. We are recording on July the 5th, 2020. My name's Eric. I'm the host of the show. I'm based in Southern Ontario. I'm a hunter, target shooter, ham radio operator, and a computer geek. As a first responder, I witnessed an over-reliance on emergency services during major events, and I started a small preparedness company to help people get prepared for at least 72 hours, and if not longer.
I'm Alan. I'm a safety trainer, first responder, security expert, and overall safety nerd.
And I'm Hugues from Nova Scotia. I'm a Canadian Armed Forces veteran, volunteer firefighter, and current station chief. I'm also a volunteer search and rescue technician and prepper. I've been preaching and living the prepper lifestyle to varying degrees for the past 6 years or so, and this was born out of necessity for the short and long-term survival of my family, which includes 3 young children.
So you want to help support the show and keep the Canadian Prepper Podcast on the air? You can buy a Canadian Prepper Podcast t-shirt at www.rapidsurvival.com. All the proceeds help keep the lights on and the backup generator fueled.
And if you are enjoying the show, please take a few minutes, like us on Facebook, submit a review on iTunes. We also want your feedback, good or bad, or even if there's just a topic you want us to cover. You can email us at feedback@prepperpodcast.ca.
So we've got some trailered content for you in this episode. We're going to start off with
some first dad joke. Yeah,
I know it's 75 episodes in, so they're going to get worse as we go. We're going to start off with some preparedness related news articles. Next, we'll let you know what we did since the last episode to help improve our preparedness. Then we're going to get into the main topic. And Ian wanted me to take a second and just let everybody know that he's got a giant disdain for all the listeners. He chose not to show up this evening. He's not working. It's my turn to get him.
So for news, I just found one little article where it's probably fairly significant at this point. Police in Seattle have decided that it's time to evacuate the autonomous zone or organized protest or whatever they're calling it these days amid a rash of shootings, wherein the first responders could not access the wounded people because of political challenges, shall we say. So it's I found it really interesting of note in this particular article. This one came from The Guardian. It said that the protesters argue that these shootings are normal for the area in an attempt to justify having the police stay away.
All right, then.
That's all I'm going to say about that. So if these shootings are normal for the area, is it maybe that there's an underlying problem we need to resolve? That eliminating the police hasn't resolved. Just, throwing that out there.
I'm guessing the fact that it was reported on at all means that the police were called as a result of the shooting.
Yeah, there's more to it than just defunding the police. Who knew?
Yep. It's weird. Call the police for a shooting in an area you don't want them at. I found a news article here. It's from Australia, but I figured it made sense to throw in for this episode. They've got a solar-powered disaster management trailer for the Rockhampton area. So it's a little article just detailing information about the trailer. I guess they can pull it around to various locations where disaster may strike or they need a portable power of some sort. And it can help out with charging electronic devices and supplying power for areas that are hit by disaster.
That's neat.
That's really handy.
That was a neat idea.
So for me, we had, I know I talked about it on the podcast last week, we had the Atlantic bubble. So for those who don't know, the 4 maritime provinces in Eastern Canada have decided to open up to one another, meaning that we can travel within the 4 provinces without the need to self-isolate. And just an interesting article that I found that there were 17,000 vehicles that entered New Brunswick on the first day of the Atlantic bubble. I definitely wouldn't have thought it would have that many. At some point, they said the lineups were 6 to 7 kilometers long. So I'm kind of expecting a rise in cases, but at the same time, these 4 provinces in Eastern Canada basically have had 0 to almost no cases in the last few weeks. So hopefully we won't see a rise, but yeah, just interesting. 17,000 vehicles in one day. So
I wonder what all that travel was so important for.
So a lot of it were friends and family that haven't been able to see each other for months, right? Because it was only essential travel that was being allowed between the provinces, and even then you had to self-isolate for 14 days. So like if you wanted to go from New Brunswick to Nova Scotia, you had to self-isolate 14 days before being able to return, and then you had to self-isolate there for 14 days. So you're basically eating a month of your time to self-isolate if you were to travel, right? So
Right.
yeah. So a lot of it was that because commercial traffic and all that kind of stuff was still allowed. It was just for leisure and stuff like that. So
a lot of traffic.
That's a lot of traffic.
It is.
17,000 cars. I can feel my head exploding being stuck in.
I don't know. I mean, obviously, I don't know what typical volume is on the Trans-Canada for traffic into New Brunswick. I mean, it may be 30,000 a day. I have no idea, right? But it just strikes me as big. Yeah.
I bet you it's not a 7 kilometer long backup.
No, definitely not. I've been to New Brunswick and there's not much there. Sorry for everyone in New Brunswick. So.
My whole family's from New Brunswick. Some of whom may be listening to my PR. Hello, and no, there's not that. I don't think there's that much. There's enough reason to go there for that long of a lineup.
Awesome.
Well, shall we move into what we've done lately for preps?
Yes, I think that's a great idea.
All right.
So I spent the last 3 days or so. I had a long weekend. Yay! Finished all my small engine maintenance for the year. Something I started in the fall but didn't get to finish it all up. Sorry. Cleaned up the garage, which is something that becomes kind of like a junk repository in our home. That's where all the junk goes, and then every once in a while I have to clean it up. And more travel trailer preps and upgrades, which we'll talk about during the main topic of the show.
Nice. So I did a whole ton of brush cutting on the property with a friend of mine. So we got lots of the limbs away from the property fence that we're going to be extending out along the entire property once the backyard gets all figured out and filled in. Also had a bunch of limbs that were a little trickier to get at that were getting pretty close to the house. So we got those cleared away. So if some bad weather does come through, well, at least the limbs aren't going to be causing any damage to the house or the fence. So that's good. Met up with Alan, had lunch and had a good chat, so that was fun. And also got some of the sump pump in the one corner of the house rerouted away because we're filling that pond in the back and regaining a bunch of land. The sump was draining out there, so got that all moved to an alternate location to drain, so it's not draining near the house. It's away and all cleared up. So slowly making progress in the backyard. Although we've had one truckload come in, and that's it because weather sucks.
It is a heck of a backyard. So my highlight of the week was going to hang out with Eric. That was a fun time. Picked up some new goodies and put those into service this week. Of course, kicking myself for not buying more, but that's I could literally just divert my entire paycheck into Eric's bank account and never have all the stuff that I want.
Send my little guy to university. It'd be great.
So this week we made a big tree go boom. That was it was a big Manitoba maple that was near the house and leaning towards the house and very clearly rotting away. So we cut that down. So I now have a new source of firewood and got a good workout with my chainsaw and more to come this week. I did some camping this weekend with the family, so had some good family fun and got some outdoor skills put to the test. We went and did some fishing on the big lake and used a reflector oven and started fires without matches and started fires with wet wood, which was a super interesting thing to do in 40 plus degree heat. So that was it was brutal. The smoke is worse than I've ever had to experience in camping before. So this afternoon when we got home, we unpacked the car, got everything reset, and then had a little family debrief to kind of improve what we carry and tailor the kit to be a little bit more useful. As most people do, we tend to pack a whole lot more than we actually need. So we're going to pare that down, and I'm trying to get everything down into one tote for the camp, one cooler, and then 2 bags that include the tent, and one for the shelter and one for the sleeping arrangements. So I'm trying to get that sorted so that we can kind of pick up and go at a moment's notice, which is not only fun for impromptu weekend camping trips, but also for 20 minutes to bug out. But that's the two things go hand in hand.
Nice. All right, let's move into the main topic. We'll let Hugues run with it.
Yeah, all right. So this is just, I guess we're going to be talking about travel trailers and RVs. And a lot of this is from knowledge I've gained just from personal research and from having owned one for all of about 3 weeks now. So believe it or not, YouTube has been a really good friend of mine lately to learn as much as I can. And I think it comes down to really the pros and the cons. So, for us, the pro is that, it is a vehicle that you can bug out in. I mean, obviously it's a house on wheels, right? So it's something that, you can just hook up to your vehicle. Typically you'd have this kind of all stocked up to go for the weekend camping trip anyway. Just add some food and you're ready to roll, right? So the advantages obviously are that it's not just something that lends itself to preparedness. It's something that you can use with your family as well. You can go out and go camping. If you've ever been camping in a tent when it's raining and all that kind of stuff, you know how miserable it can be. So having a solid roof over your head is, a great advantage. So looking at it in that sense, having the RV is something that can be used for, the family outings, can be used for if you go, hunting or fishing and all that kind of stuff, and you would just want to get away on like a weekend trip, and also for the preparedness. I mean, if you have to bug out, typically you'd have this packed anyway, and then if you have to bug out, knowing that you may not be coming back to your house because, something like a fire could be encroaching on your property, at that point you could pack your bins into the vehicle. They typically, it ranges on the size of the vehicle and all that kind of stuff, but you typically have a couple £1,000s to play with as far as what you can add to the vehicle. And if it's only a short distance, then it's probably not that big of a deal to go over what the vehicle is capable of. So that's kind of like the starting point, is just to make sure that, this is going to fit your lifestyle. It's going to fit your preparedness planning and all that kind of stuff. And that's kind of a good point to start. Now, I'm just going to quickly talk about the differences in the types of travel trailers and motorhomes and all that kind of stuff. Because when we say RV, it's kind of like an all-encompassing term for recreational vehicle. And really, you're looking at, Class A, Class C. You've got travel trailers, you've got fifth wheels, you've got pop-ups and all that kind of stuff. The one that I bought is a 29-foot bumper pole, which is basically pulled by the bumper of the vehicle. A fifth wheel is also a travel trailer that looks like the trailer of a semi. So it basically hooks into the bed of the vehicle as opposed to being pulled by the bumper. And then Class A and Class C are the motorhomes that are self-propelled. So essentially they're either a diesel pusher like Eric has in the back in this picture there behind him. So that's like the big bus-like conversions. These are very, very expensive, very large. The Class C are the ones that are typically like a pickup truck conversion. So you'd have like an F350, maybe an E350 chassis, and then you'd have kind of like the motorhome popped onto it. And then other ones are like the pop-ups, which we all know what those are. I mean, they can be towed by a sedan, and you basically arrive to your site, you pop it up, you put the tents out, and you're ready to go at that point. So I think when it comes to, if you've made the decision to get a travel trailer because it's going to suit your family, and it's something that you could definitely incorporate into your preparedness plans, you really have to ask yourself, what's your budget? And also, are you capable of towing it? So if you currently own, a Volkswagen Jetta, you're really going to be limited into what you can pull. Although if you own something like, a 3,500 one-ton truck, your options are going to be almost limitless as to what you can actually pull, right? So it really comes down to what can you afford and what can you tow right now? Because if you don't have a vehicle capable of towing what you're looking at, then you have to look at upgrading your vehicle as well. So when it came to my purchase, I really wanted to be in at no more than about $20,000 to $25,000 all in. Because this was going to be our first one. We didn't know if we were going to enjoy it or not, or if we were going to keep it. And you have to understand that travel trailers, unlike other vehicles, they depreciate a lot quicker than something like a car or a truck. So you're talking, the depreciation is anywhere from 40 to 50% once you drive the vehicle off the lot. So you pay $40,000 for an RV. You want to flip it the next year, it's probably worth about $20,000 at that point. So they depreciate a lot. So at that point, we looked at getting a used travel trailer, which is what we did. We got one that was about a year old. Had only been used about 3 weeks. So for us, somebody else ate the depreciation on the vehicle, which was quite significant. We paid around $21,000 for this, and the going rate when it was new last year was like 37,000. So somebody ate $16,000 in depreciation for 3 weeks of use, right? So
that's worth it right there.
Right, and then the second consideration was can I tow it? So my truck is capable of towing 11,900 pounds. It's definitely not something I'd want to max out, but this trailer is coming in at just around 4,900 pounds dry. And when you say dry, it means that it's just a bare trailer. There's no accessories in it. There's nothing that you've added. The tanks are empty, so your water tank, your sewage tank, and all that kind of stuff are empty. So 4,900 pounds is the dry weight, and then the hitch weight is about 500. Throw in a weight distribution hitch, so you're not squatting too much, and yeah. So I mean, I'm basically I'm not even at half of what I can tow. So those are the two big considerations, and what we ended up getting is like I said, like a 2019 29-foot travel trailer. There's no slides in it. But this is something I can sleep 10 people. There's a queen bed in the front. There's 2 double bunks in the back, full 3-piece bathroom, full kitchen. There's a dinette. There's a sofa. Both of those turn into double beds.
You say you could sleep
10 people, yeah.
Wow.
So yeah, you'd have 2 in the queen. I mean, the dinette and the sofa bed, or the sofa turn into double beds. Now, could you fit 2 adults on a double? Yeah, you could. I mean, it probably wouldn't be as comfortable. But yeah, so they listed as sleeping 10 people. I mean, we've had, if you have, 2 adults and 6 kids, then it's going to be fine, right? So a lot of these, even pop-ups, can sleep like 6 people because you have 2 beds on either side, and then the dinette will turn into a bed as well, right? So you have to look at this as, in the evening, once the partying is done and all that kind of stuff, this is just a giant tent, right? This is just a place to sleep, essentially, right? So that's why you have that much sleeping space in these things. So yeah, that my biggest piece of advice, and this is something that I got from talking to a lot of people, from doing a lot of research on all that kind of stuff, is new is nice, and new comes with a warranty and all that kind of stuff. But if you get something that's very lightly used, like maybe 1 to 2 years, the thing is that these things are built very cheaply, very quickly, and they're going to have issues. No matter if they're new or used, you're going to run into issues. In my opinion, it's probably better to let the original owner get through those issues, get them warranty through the dealer, because the warranty is also only applicable to the first owner, which means that if somebody buys it, uses it for 6 months, and then I buy it, there's no warranty on it. That's it. And extended warranties, you're talking like $4,000 or $5,000 for something that's only worth about 20 grand. So you're better pocketing that cash and taking your chances as to whether or not something's going to break on it. So again, your mileage may vary based on your dealer, your location, what type of RV you're looking at. But this is just my personal experience, that I was buying, a $20,000 used travel trailer, and the warranty on it was, $5,000 for 5 years. So to me, that was just not worth it. I'd rather put the money in the bank and risk it if something breaks on it. So
yeah, I'd be looking at the same thing, I think.
Well, I suppose it depends on what breaks and your ability to fix it yourself. If you're a handy guy that you can do both carpentry and mechanical work, then it shouldn't be a big deal to fix most of that stuff yourself. Because as you said, it's basically just a big tent on wheels. So if you've got basic skills, then you can fix most of those things to at least an acceptable level on your own.
Right, and understand that the warranty is not going to cover things like your brakes that wear out or your tires that wear out. These are wear and tear items, right? Like the warranty is going to cover things like workmanship, materials that fail. But you have to understand that these are they have to be very light in order to go down the road. I mean, if these travel trailers were built to the same standards that the house was, I mean, a 29-foot travel trailer would weigh 20,000 pounds, and most vehicles couldn't pull it at that point. So they're built with ultralight materials, which means that when it's going down the highway and it's moving and flexing, your fasteners are going to come loose. You're going to break fasteners. You're going to break rivets. I mean, ours is only a year old, and I've already found about 20 broken screws and rivets and all that kind of stuff. And I've been fixing trim pieces. And anyone who's owned a travel trailer will tell you that these things are constantly breaking, in a sense that a lot of it is cosmetic, but you have to keep up the maintenance on it. The big items are your air conditioner, your 3-way fridge, your furnace, your hot water heater, because of the fact that they're very specialized items. So to give you an example, like a 6-gallon hot water heater for an RV is $800. I mean, a 40-gallon hot water heater from Home Depot is like $500 or $600, right? But the difference is that the hot water heater for the RV is both electric and gas, so it'll do one or the other. And then it's a very specialized item that has to go in a vehicle. If you're looking at the fridges are anywhere from $1,500 to $3,500, and they're only 6 cubic feet. A typical household refrigerator is, 33 to 40 cubic feet. So this is tiny, but these are fridges that are three-way, meaning that they'll work off 110, which is your shore power. It'll work off 12 volt or propane gas as well. So this is a fridge that'll work on any one of these three sources. And again, there's a lot of technology that goes into these, but this isn't something that typically breaks. A lot of people have 25-year-old travel trailers, and the fridges are still working fine. So. Yeah. But those are your big ticket items: the air conditioners, the fridges, the hot water heaters, the furnaces. These are items that really that add up in terms of cost. But they're user serviceable items that if you're if you're mechanically inclined, it's not going to be that big of a deal to change out. So the other big items are your roof. So a lot of them have what's called I think it's an EPDM or TPO roof, which is like a rubber membrane. So these are $1,500 to $3,000 to replace. So you just want to make sure you keep the maintenance on it. If you have any damage, you patch it up. Other than that, I mean, they're fairly sturdy. It just comes down to make sure you don't strike anything with it. So a lot of times I see people complaining that, I broke my RV, but they have a tree strike, and they said I was only going 20 kilometers an hour when I hit a tree, but take a 2x4 and slam it into something at 20 kilometers an hour that's made of, balsam wood and like aluminum, and you're going to see what's going to happen, right? So
you're going to leave a dent.
You're going to leave a dent, yeah. So.
That part of the decision-making process also has to be like, what are you willing to live without? So if something breaks while you're on the road, what's your backup plan to deal with that until you can get it back to wherever it is and get it repaired, right? So I think is it reasonable to say that your 3-way 12-volt propane 110 fridge could work on one of the other solutions if one of them fails?
Yeah, 100%. And it's the same thing for the hot water heater. So I mean, if you burn out your electrical element, chances are your gas is still able to heat the water, right? So you do have kind of a backup built in there. I mean, if there's another type of failure, like your tank actually wears out, then but you've got to think as well that this is something that you're probably not going to live in full time. So when you're not living in it, you drain the water out of the tank so that it's not attacking the tank. Just things like that, right? Like you don't leave the fridge running 24/7 for the whole year. When you're done camping, you unplug it and you crack it open so it doesn't build mold or anything. But you basically, these items are getting very little use in terms of, maybe a week or two a year, maybe more, depending on how much you're camping, right? But these are items that they're not going to have a lot of use. And again, if you keep the maintenance up on it, shouldn't have any troubles with most of them. So.
So when you were deciding on a trailer, what were you looking for when you settled on this one?
So good question. I had a very limited scope that I wanted something that would fit my family. So again, it's my wife and I, and then our 3 kids. So I wanted something that had the bunks in the rear and the queen bedroom in the front, so we would have enough living room or living space essentially, that you're not having to convert a sofa into a bed every night for you and your spouse. So we have a dedicated bed. The kids have their dedicated bunks. 3-piece bath, again, because having an actual bathtub instead of a shower for the kids is great, given the age of my children, which are like 2, 4, and 6. And then just having somewhat of like an eating area, especially if it's getting into the colder months. If you start camping early in April or going into October here in Canada, those temperatures can dip into the single digits, as well as if it's raining. So I mean, if you're camping and it's raining, it's not that big of a deal. You're actually inside of an RV. So for me, it's making sure that it fit my family's needs, that I was capable of towing it. And one big thing I was looking at is whether or not to get a slide. So a slide out is exactly like it sounds. It's just part of the trailer slides out to give you more living room within the trailer itself. But this has, pros and cons as well. So the pros are that you get more living room area or more living space area. You actually increase the square footage of the coach when the slide is deployed. But when it isn't deployed, it's kind of hard to navigate your way around. So, when you come to a stop and rest area, if you actually wanted to get the most out of your coach, you'd have to extend that slide out every time. So there's a con there. These are mechanisms, again, that have to be very light but very sturdy. So these are mechanisms that can break. They can become out of alignment. The slides can actually leak because it's just an extra amount of area for water to get ingress. And other things as well is that it destabilizes the trailer in terms of weight, because you have, a 1,500-pound slide on one side of the coach or on one side of the trailer that's not on the other side of the trailer. So you're basically unbalancing the trailer a little bit. You have other considerations, like it actually reduces the structural integrity of the trailer, meaning that, you have, a solid wall, and you're basically cutting a gigantic hole out of it and sliding a slide into it. That actually destabilizes the structural integrity of the trailer. So there's that to consider as well. We said, we don't necessarily need a living space, because when we go out camping, we're not going to be actually spending all our time in the trailer. We won't want to spend time outside of the trailer, and just use this as an easier way for us to cook and sleep and wash our kids than being in an actual tent, because that's not a very pleasurable experience when your kids are 2, 4, and 6. So those are the main pieces of consideration. And to be honest, most trailers are kind of the same in terms of, you've only got a few basic layouts. Each manufacturer is going to have its own kind of layout based on the length of the trailer, but most of them are going to have, the 3-piece bath. They're going to have the 3-burner range, the oven, the microwave, and all that kind of stuff. So there's very little differences in them aside from the floor plan and the actual length of them, essentially.
Okay, and so so you've got 110 power, you've got 12-volt power. Is everything dual voltage, or do you run, or is it just the fridge that runs on dual volt?
No, so yeah, it's a good question. So all of the lights in the coach inside and out are 12 volt. So all of your lighting is 12 volt. Your fridge is 12 volt, 110 or propane. Your hot water is 110 or propane. Now, if you're going to be running your hot water off 110 only, it takes like 5 or 6 hours to get the water warm. Propane, 20 minutes. So, you could heat up with the propane, shut your propane off to save your gas, switch it to shore power. So you're basically running the hot water heater off 110 at that point. Other than that, you basically have an inverter built into the trailer that's always charging your 12-volt system. So when you're plugged into shore power, that inverter is providing power for all the 12-volt systems within the coach and actually charging your battery as well. And then there's a number of outlets within the trailer that are all 110, and those don't work unless you are plugged into shore power or you add an inverter to basically go from 12-volt to 110, and then you have to have an automatic switch that would switch between shore power and the inverter inside your trailer. So if you're not plugged into shore power, then at that point you'd be running off the batteries for your 110, which is all of your outlets inside the RV, essentially.
So what kind of draw are you getting on your lighting then? Like, what do you know what the amps are that it's drawing?
Yeah, I do actually. I put it into the notes. Let me pull it up here.
You put a lot into the notes, frankly.
I put a lot in the notes. Yeah. So I don't usually write this much, but yeah. I don't see where I put it. I thought I put it in here.
920 amp hours, is that where you're...
No, 920 amp hours is what I have for the batteries.
Okay.
Yeah, and anyways, I think when I calculated, it was something like 2.1 or 2.2 amps when I've got all the lights on. So that includes the inside LED. Well, this is a newer trailer, so it's got all LED lights inside and out. If you're looking at an older trailer, probably 3 or 4 years old and older, you're looking at incandescent bulbs throughout. So you'll probably be drawing almost 8 or 9 amps at that point. But that was, I mean, for maybe $100 or $200, you can switch all those incandescent lights to LEDs, and then you're drawing much less power at that point. Typically, these trailers come with like a 12-volt deep cycle marine battery that's going to give you anywhere between 210 to 230 amp hours. So again, if I had all my lights on, I can go 110 hours with all my lights on. So that's something like 4.5 days almost. But looking to so the upgraded electrical system went from a 12-volt deep cycle battery to 4 golf cart batteries, which are basically deep cycle AGM that are wired in series and parallel, which give me a total of 920 amp hours. So if I were to run all of my lights inside and out, I'd have something like 450 hours, which is almost 10 and a half days. I'm just kind of doing math on the fly here, but yeah, so it gives me a lot longer time that I can be off grid rather than the battery that just comes with it, right? So.
And you've got a solar setup on this too, right? If you're parked for any length of time.
Yeah, so it's two 480 watt panels, 960 watts in total with the Renogy charge controller. So those are basically always on, and they're always charging the 12 volt. There's a disconnect, but the charger is a smart charger. So basically, once the batteries reach their float voltage, the charger goes into a maintenance mode as opposed to keep pounding the amps into the batteries and cook them essentially, right? So yeah, so I've got 960 watts of solar on the top, 920 amp hours in the battery bank. So if the solar panels aren't there or not functioning, I've got about 10 and a half days or so of being able to boondock essentially, or not have any shore power coming into the RV. And basically the only other stuff I'm using 12 volt for is either going to be the fridge or the pilot light in order to ignite the furnace or the hot water heater. So even if you're only running off propane for your hot water or your furnace, you still need a 12 volt to spark to get that started. There is a way to do it manually, like you can open up a little access hatch and you can put a lighter in there if you needed to do so. But as long as you have 12 volt, it's going to be able to spark that flame. So, and that's the only stuff. Oh, sorry, there is also a 12 volt pump within the coach. So if there's two ways to get water, and there's so much to talk about, guys. I'm sorry, but there's two ways to get water to all of your faucets. So obviously, like your kitchen faucet, your bathroom faucet, your toilet, your shower. So you can either be connected to city water, or you can actually fill your fresh water tank, which mine is, I believe, is like 60 gallons. And then there's a 12 volt pump on board that basically pulls from that fresh water tank and actually sends it out to all of those faucets. But if you're connected to like a campsite or at home, you wouldn't actually fill your fresh water tank. You would just basically connect to the CD line connection. What that does is that it bypasses the tank and only sends water directly to all of your taps and faucets at that point. So
is that water pump 12 volts as well? Do you know?
It's 12 volts. Yeah. And these are easily serviceable items. I mean, it's like 4 screws that can get access to it. The terminal connections are easy to take out. I mean, any RV store, you walk into any RV store, even places like Canadian Tire might have them. You just look for a 12 volt water pump. That's it. There's nothing special about it, right? So,
okay. And so, if you have an inline water tank, do you then have the ability to filter water if you were talking about an off-grid situation?
Yeah. So, I mean, as these coaches come from the manufacturer, I can guarantee you that most of them don't have any water filtration systems, and it's actually advisable not to drink water that's out of this tank, especially if you're buying a used one, because you don't know what the previous owner did with this, right? You can shock the tank, you can put some bleach in and clean it and all that kind of stuff, but really, I would only use the tank for use in washing dishes and showering and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, you can actually get like a reverse osmosis system to install after your 12 volt pump. So the water coming out of your system would actually go through that reverse osmosis system. Now, one thing I would recommend is getting like a pre-sediment filter to protect your reverse osmosis membrane, because if any rocks or dirt or sand get to that membrane, you can actually damage it. And the biggest part, or one of the biggest parts of a reverse osmosis system, is that membrane. That's a huge cost right there, right? So just protecting it with like a $20 inline sediment filter is going to be a great investment as far as that goes. So
okay. And what about like general maintenance? Like if you've got to take this on a long haul, what kind of tire wear life do you get out of it? Of course, it's going to depend a lot on where you're going and how much you're hauling, but
yeah, and you're going to see a lot of people talk about this when it comes to, most of them, again, these things are made very cheaply and very quickly. And one of the ways that they save money is by putting what they call China bomb tires. And I don't mean to be derogatory by any means, but that's what the industry is calling them. They're calling them, will blow or China bombs, because they're actually fairly cheap tires that are sourced out of China. But typically, from what I've read, if you maintain the tires properly, you shouldn't have an issue. You're probably gonna you're probably going to dry rot the tires before you wear the life out on the thread on them. And what I mean by that is, these trailers sit most of their lives. You may be driving it maybe 2, 3, maybe 4 weeks a year, and this is going to be short trips, like a few hundred kilometers each way. So typically you're not going to wear out the tread. So the tires may physically still look to be fine if you're looking at the thread on the tires alone, but what you have to look for is dry rot and cracking. You have to look for like bubbles that are forming on the side of the tire, but it comes down to ensuring that you're not overloading the tire and overloading the axle. So if you typically look at a tire, you'll see like there's going to be a weight rating on the tire itself. Mine are something like 2,040 pounds per tire. So between the 4 tires, I can have a gross vehicle weight of it's like 8,400 pounds, but the gross vehicle weight is like 6,900 pounds, right? So the tires are actually capable of taking more than what the vehicle is. So just ensure that you're not overloading your trailer. That's a huge thing. Making sure that your tires are inflated to the proper PSI, and that is going to be written on the side of the RV. And that's very, very important, because typically car tires are inflated to 32, 35 PSI. A lot of people make the mistake of inflating their trailer tires to 35 PSI, when in reality, most of them need 65 to 80 PSI. And if you underinflate them, you're creating a lot of flex on that sidewall, and that generates heat, and the heat is what typically will cause a blowout. So, the biggest thing is do not ever overload these travel trailers, because you're going to be overloading the axle. You're going to cause a lot of premature wear on the bearings. You're going to cause a lot of premature wear on the brakes. You're going to cause a lot of sidewall flex on the tires, and these are all expensive components that are going to cost you a fortune if you overload it, right? So
those are those run on electric brakes, right?
They run electric brakes. Yeah.
So it's got your typical 7-pin connector. It's nothing like super special, right?
7-pin connector with a breakaway, so that if the trailer were to detach from the vehicle, from the tow vehicle on the highway, it would automatically apply to the brakes at that point. And the brakes are something that you'd have to have a brake controller within your vehicle in order to control those, and make sure you know how to use it. So just a quick rundown. It's if you're in an empty parking lot, like a Walmart parking lot, typically your gain is going to be set to 5, which is kind of the default. And then you would put your vehicle in drive, you take your foot off the brake, and then the vehicle is going to start creeping forward. And then what you want to do is squeeze the brake controller so that the vehicle comes to a comfortable stop. If you squeeze the controller and the vehicle jerks to a stop, then you have too much gain, and you would back it down like 0.5 to 1 and try again. And if you squeeze the brake controller and nothing happens, then you need to crank up the gain. And if you got the gain all the way up to 10 and nothing happens, guess what? Your brakes are shot. So you either have to get that fixed or get it looked at, because essentially what's going to happen is that when you're going down a highway and you're coming off and on, or an off ramp, that's 6,000 pounds behind you. It's your vehicle brakes that are doing all that work. Can it do it? Yeah, it can. But you're looking at brake fade on your own brakes at this point. You're looking at a lot more wear and tear. And honestly, a brake job on a trailer is like $100 a wheel. A brake job on a pickup truck is probably $300 to $400 a wheel, right? So make sure that you wear out your trailer brakes before you wear out the brakes on your vehicle, because it's going to be a lot more expensive to fix your vehicle brakes than it is to fix those cheap trailer brakes at $100 a wheel. So
for somebody who doesn't drive with the trailer, I haven't backed a trailer in probably 10 years. Is there where could I go for refresher training on that?
You know what? Honestly, YouTube is going to give you a lot of good pointers as far as what to do and when to do it. I would recommend, when you pick up your trailer, or you pick up, if you haven't backed up a trailer ever, or if the longest trailer you've backed up is a 4-foot landscape trailer, going up to a 30-foot trailer is a big game changer, right? But believe it or not, the longer the trailer, the easier it is to back up. So I've got a 12-foot enclosed, and I've got this 29-foot travel trailer, and the 29-foot one is easier to back up than the 12-foot one, because the further away your axle is, or your axles are from the hitch, the easier it is to control that trailer. And it comes down to, go into an empty parking lot, pick a parking spot that you want to back your trailer into, and just just try it. I mean, it's, like you'll basically find where you need to position your vehicle in order to make that one just that one seamless turn. But again, I mean, a lot of us are not professional truck drivers, so this isn't going to be something that's easy, especially where there's a lot of challenges in campgrounds. You may have some trees, you may have like electrical posts that you have to get around, and people are going to be looking at you. They're not making fun of you. They're just interested to see what you're doing. Take your time. Don't worry about what others are thinking, because ultimately, if you rush it and you strike something with your trailer or your truck, it's going to be coming out of your pocket, right? So just take your time, go easy, go to a Walmart parking lot and practice. But yeah, the longer the trailer, the better. I'm not saying go buy a 47-foot trailer, but it's actually easier than, I would rather back my 29-foot trailer than have a 4-foot landscape trailer hooked up and trying to back that thing up. So
it's funny how that works.
Yeah, it is. It's, I mean, and I thought, I heard it and I was like, I don't think so. And then I remember how it's not hard to back up my 12-foot trailer, but this 29-foot one was like, holy, this is a lot easier. So,
yep.
Right on. I've run out of questions.
I think Ian had some that he wrote into the notes, if I'm not mistaken.
Mounting a motorcycle on the back is what he was asking about.
Yeah, so yes and no. Typically, a lot of these travel trailers will have a solid rear bumper, and a lot of them will actually have a weight rating on them. I think mine is only 300 pounds, so a motorcycle is going to be a definite no-no. But mounting a bike rack to put 2 bikes on it, sure, that's not that big of a deal. You can definitely get the bumper upgraded where they would actually be a little bit sturdier, mounted to the frame rails and all that kind of stuff. And you do see some people have like golf carts actually mounted on the rear trailer of their travel trailer. But again, typically the average travel trailer is not going to be able to have a golf cart or a motorcycle or anything. So right from the factory, motorcycle and all that, I would say no. Bikes, yes. But yeah, if you want to step up your game and go to a motorcycle, you're definitely going to have to do some work to upgrade the bumper on your trailer.
Okay. Just remember that stuff's there when you're backing up.
Yes, yeah. And that's the thing too, when they say you've got a 29, like if you look at most travel trailers, you're going to look at the model and it's going to say like 25 SLE or 29 BLS. That number, the first number, like the 29, designates the amount of, or the length of living space you have in the trailer. It doesn't take into account the tongue of the trailer and the rear bumper of the trailer. So on my trailer, it's 25 feet of living space, and I've got basically a 4-foot tongue, and then like maybe 8 inches, because my bumper is fairly recessed into the trailer. But I've seen some that have a bumper that stick out like 2 feet, because you can actually put some bins on there. So you'd have 2 feet there, and 3 or 4 feet for the tongue. So then you're basically adding another 5 or 6 feet to your trailer. So if you're looking at like a 29-foot trailer, most of them you're going to add 5 or 6 feet. So you're looking at really like a 35-foot trailer at that point.
Ian decided to join us.
So I'm
fashionably late.
Well, I'm 43 minutes late, and the way I look at it is Trudeau was 45 minutes late for his briefing, so I still beat him by 2.
Touche, sir. Well played.
Ian, thanks for joining us. We were just getting through some of your questions, and actually, there's a question in the live chat on Facebook from Jeff Soley. It looks like he says, "What modifications can you do if you need to bug out in the winter?" So obviously that's a big concern because most of us are covered in snow half the year.
That's a really good question, Jeff. And a lot of trailers are going to be designated as 3-season. Most of the trailers that you're going to buy are going to be 3-season trailers. Some are 4-season, but they're really, really expensive because they really have to step up the amount of insulation that's in the trailer and also protect the plumbing that's under the belly of the trailer, that's between the frame rails. And when I mean plumbing, I'm talking about all your fresh water, your gray water, and your black water tanks. So in my trailer, it's designated as a 3-season, meaning that the underbelly of the trailer is insulated. So my tanks are basically between the frame rails. There's insulation, and then there's like almost like a skid plate, but it's made of plastic, that goes underneath that basically would prevent the tanks from freezing when it comes to a snap frost. So I mean, if the temperatures dip to -3 overnight, not going to be that big of a deal, but I can't have a sustained -15 degrees Celsius temperature. The plumbing is going to freeze, the tanks are going to freeze, and all that kind of stuff. So there are 4-season trailers, but the difference in price is astronomical because they're very rare, and they're not something that people typically buy. In terms of what you could do, you could add heaters to the tank. So there's actually you can actually buy elements that would go into your tanks, and agitators that basically keep the water moving and keep the water kind of heated. So you could buy those. You can add more insulation, but again, you'd basically have to rip the walls apart to add insulation, because what comes in the trailer as far as the furnace is only really good until the temperature is like -5 Celsius. Anything less than that, the propane furnace would not be able to keep up, and you'd have to have some sort of auxiliary heat. So maybe some added electrical heat or something like that.
Or the worst case, what about it, like take off that skid plate and try to do like a heat tape idea around the pipes or anything?
You definitely could. I think with just thinking about how my trailer is built, like I'd have to pull down that skid plate, and unfortunately they didn't screw it in place. They like nailed it in place through the steel frame. So that's one job on its own. You'd have to rip out all the insulation in order to add that. So really, it's like if you want a 4-season trailer, you're better off trying to source one than trying to do what's necessary in order to get that trailer to be livable in 4 seasons. So. Esmeralda joined us from Southern California. I don't think she would have any issues with needing a 4-season trailer. I think you'd be.
Well, I mean, if she's on a Big Bear or something like that, I suppose, or Shasta,
like Tahoe, or yeah.
Or bugging out to Canada.
Yeah, bugging out to Canada. There was another question here for Ian about insurance differences. So insurance was a bit of a surprise. Insurance is actually not cheap on these things. You can go anywhere from $500 to $1,000 a year. This is in Canadian dollars, so kind of translate that for our U.S. listeners. And the way it works is that the insurance has to go both under your home insurance and your vehicle insurance. So the way the insurance company sees it is that whenever this travel trailer is hooked up to your vehicle, it goes under your vehicle insurance. Whenever it's stationary, like let's say it's parked in your driveway, it goes under your home insurance. So you basically are paying two different premiums. Now the cheaper one is the vehicle insurance was only like I think $88 for 6 months, and then the home insurance was like an extra $288 for 6 months. And the reason it's so expensive is because you have to understand that for the replacement value of these vehicles, $20 to $30,000 or so. But to the insurance companies, they know how shoddily these things are built. And the fact that they have both electrical, 12 volt and 110 volt, and gas within the vehicle, that's a lot of risks, and a lot of risks that they're taking at that point, right? It's not uncommon to, see pictures on the internet of these things going up in flames on the side of the highway, or, catching fire in your driveway. Again, these things are going to happen, and that's why we're paying the premiums that we are for these things. So
I'd imagine a lot of that is based on just poor maintenance and maybe not knowing how to use it, right?
Right. I mean, it comes to, if you have a leak in your roof, and it goes unchecked for even a few weeks, you're probably looking at anywhere from $8,000 to $10,000 in damage, because then you're looking at replacing the roof for one, which I said was anywhere from $1,500 to $3,000, plus the labor. That's only the membrane, right? So then you have the labor of having it replaced, and then whatever damage the water did. And a lot of what's going to be in the trailer is either going to be plywood, which are the better trailers, or OSB, which is the oriented strand board. Basically, it's just pieces of wood that are glued together under pressure, but as soon as water hits it, it bloats, it becomes soft, and that stuff has to be replaced, right? So you're looking at mold issues with insulation and wood being replaced and all that kind of stuff. So I've seen a lot of people say, I had a small leak in my roof, it went unchecked for a few weeks, brought it to a dealer, I'm looking at $8,000 to $10,000 now. Ooh. So unless you have insurance, you're looking at scrapping a trailer at that point. So
and I mean, they're also absolute magnets for animals. I couldn't begin to tell you the number of people I know that have these travel trailers and have squirrel damage.
Mice, squirrels.
Yeah, nice damage.
And a lot of times too is when you put it in storage for the winter, when you take it out in the spring, make sure before you power it on or send gas through the lines or anything like that, try to check as much as you can. If you find droppings, if you find a nest or anything like that, almost try to rip stuff apart, because they will eat through insulation. They will eat, I don't know if they'll eat through gas lines because those are typically made of metal, but they will eat the insulation on the wires. And a lot of times when you apply power, and you've got 110 volts going through this and 30 amps, it's when you're going to have a fire, right? So these are notorious for animals living them through winter, and it's a telltale sign if you find droppings within the trailer when you go putting it up in spring and such. So
well, actually, I discovered something about my Mazda too. So if your trailer's old it's it's PVC like wire sheathing, right? But now because of the green movement, all the wire sheathing for the last 5 years or so is vegetable based, so the animals love it even more. So they'll strip off that sheathing on the wires like you wouldn't believe it. And so of course my Mazda got eaten alive, and so yeah, that's why they're doing it.
I've heard as well. I mean, I've heard a lot of people say, you know, put like Irish Spring soap within your trailer, like shavings. That's one way to do it. Peppermint oil. They really hate the peppermint oil. You can obviously put traps, like rat traps or mouse traps. Another great thing is go under your RV. And a lot of the older ones don't have the skid plate that mine has. That's just basically covering all these tanks up. But even with the skid plates that are there, and I'm calling it a skid plate, it's just a piece of plastic, guys. I'm sorry, but you know, take some insulating foam, like the expanding foam, and go through and fill every single gap you can find, even if it's only like a 1-inch gap for where a pipe is coming out, or you know, your drain pipes or something. Believe it or not, a mouse will fit through there and will wreak damage and hell through your trailer. But yeah, fill any voids, cracks, and seams, and all that kind of stuff with that insulating foam underneath your trailer, and it should hopefully prevent, you know, critters from getting into your trailer. I wouldn't be worried about, you know, stuff like raccoons and stuff like that. I mean, if they're getting in your trailer, you've got other problems. But
I mean, the insulating foam is good because it'll keep obviously a better R value on your trailer, but also steel, they can still chew through that, but steel wool they won't chew through. So if there's an issue there as well, if they've already chewed through a spot, you can put steel wool in to prevent them from doing it again. But there's also obviously you can do the bait stations with the poison, like you mentioned, the mouse traps as well. Garlic, let's see, pounce dryer sheets. It all repels them.
I heard that as well. Yeah. And even they said like some glue traps. I mean, you can buy a 30-pack of glue traps on Amazon, stick them everywhere in there, because you're not going to be in the trailer time in winter. And the more traps you have out, the more likelihood you're going to catch one, right? So, yeah.
Absolutely. So, sorry, after this podcast later, but did we talk about the motorbikes right off the bat?
Yeah, we did, and we just kind of mentioned that most travel trailers have a rear bumper that's only rated for about 300 pounds. So a lot of times it's only meant to have like a spare tire, which is going to weigh anywhere from 60 to 80 pounds, and then you can add a bike rack and maybe 1 or 2 bikes on there. You know, the 300 pounds is you're probably even safe with 400 or 500 pounds. But again, this is going to be something that's bouncing all the time. It's putting flex and stress on your rear bumper. I've seen pictures of people that put more than they're supposed to, and the whole bumper just falls off. I mean, again, these things are built quickly. The welds are not the best, right? So you can though get you know, aftermarket bumpers that are a lot more solid, that are welded in or bolted into the frame, and you're looking at being able to carry a lot more weight. I've seen people with some motorcycles on the back. I've seen people with golf carts actually on the back of their travel trailer. So I don't know what those weigh, but they must be close to 1,000 pounds, I'd say, or a few hundred pounds at least. So
I would think, yeah.
Was there anything else I wanted to cover? I think we covered electrical. We covered water for the most part. LP gas. So just quickly, most of these trailers are going to come with 2 20-pound tanks or 5 gallons each. So you're looking at 10 gallons of gas on board. Again, your propane gas is going to be used for your hot water heater, your furnace. Most of them have a 2 or 3 burner cooktop, have an oven, and yeah, so that's it. So and your fridge, I'm sorry. So your fridge is 3-way. So you'll typically have a 12-volt, 110-volt or propane-powered fridge. And the one thing, the one piece of advice that was given to me is, you know, when you're turning on your gas for the first time, when you get to a campsite or something like that, light your burner for about on your stove for about 10 to 20 seconds, because that is the last appliance on the line. And what it does is it purges the line of any air. Because a lot of times I see a lot of questions of people saying, you know, my hot water heater is not starting, my fridge isn't starting, my furnace is working. That's because as the actual appliance is trying to spark the gas, it's only sparking air because of all the air that's trapped in the line. So obviously just turn your burner on for 10 or 20 seconds, purges all the air out of the line, and then all your other appliances should work at that point. Quick upgrades for that type of system. I mean, you can actually go up in size when it comes to the size of tank. Typically, you might see, I think it's a 33-pound tank that can go on the front. So you'd have 2 33-pound tanks, which are 8 gallons, I believe, each, as opposed to the 20-pound tanks that are typically your household barbecue tanks. If you can, inside of the RV, you can actually put like a 100-pound tank. They sell these things at Costco, and you know, one 100-pound tank is 5 20-pound tanks, right? So when it comes to recreational camping in the summertime, typically most of your gas is going to be used on your hot water heater and your fridge. You're typically not going to be running your furnace. So, you know, I've heard of people going like an entire season off two 20-pound tanks. Mine as well has an outlet for the barbecue, so I just had to buy like a $20 hose off Amazon, connect to the barbecue, connect to a 1/4-inch quick connect on the bottom of the RV, so I don't have to take an additional propane tank with me. I can just connect into the 2 tanks that are in front of the coach at that point. So
That's handy.
Well, the nice thing is propane, of course, lasts forever, right? There's no expiry on propane, so it can sit all winter and it's not going to go bad.
Right. So for people looking to get a generator, like I've got a Honda EU EU 2000i, so a little 2000 watt generator. What I'd like to get is the propane conversion kit for the generator. So instead of having gas, which we know gas can go stale and all that kind of stuff, I've already got propane on the coach that I'm typically only using for hot water. But if I'm going to a campground, I'm not going to use my propane. I'm going to use their electricity to heat my hot water. Right. I'm typically not going to be using the cooktop. I'm not going to be using the oven. I mean, I'm going to be doing everything on the barbecue outside. So that's a good idea as well. Yeah.
Nice. Yeah, then you can use a generator to top up your batteries if you don't have shore power, right?
Exactly. So that's the thing with power. I mean, if you obviously if you have shore power, that's the ideal way to do it because you're not paying for that power. Well, you are through your campsite fees, but there's no additional cost for power. Solar if you have it, and then if you need to have a generator, I mean, the generator can top up the batteries in just a matter of like 2 or 3 hours, right? So with the amount of amps that this is pushing out. One thing I know we're getting up to time here. One thing I wanted to mention is security. So anyone who's had an RV or has an RV or a travel trailer, look at your keys, and if they say CH751, well, I've got the same keys, and the guy next to you at the RV camp has the same keys. And what happened is that the manufacturers for the luggage compartments, at least on these RVs, they all use the same cam lock, and it's CH751. So if you've got that key, you can go to any travel trailer in any campsite in North America and open up their luggage compartments. And typically these things, I'm telling you, they have hundreds, if not thousands of dollars of stuff stored in them, as far as electrical equipment, all that kind of stuff. So the first thing you should do is go on something like Amazon or trailer or something like that, replace your cam locks. They're 15 to 20 bucks a piece. Is it going to stop a determined thief? No, it's not, because these luggage doors are made out of plastic and fiberglass. I mean, this is not going to stop somebody from putting a sledgehammer through the door, but it's going to stop the honest thief, so to speak, from getting into your luggage compartments, right? So that's the number one thing. Again, these things are not built like tanks. I mean, if you have an X-Acto knife, you can probably get through them. I mean, really, it's like an aluminum skin, then you have some insulation, some wooden backboard, and that's it, right? So it's like most new homes. You have an X-Acto knife, you can get through the side of the house, right? So.
But at least you're not going to have people, your tools walking away on you type of thing, whether it just be your jack or your leveling device or whatever, right? So
yeah. And then, as far as just one thing I want to mention about electrical, which is really, really important, is make sure you get a surge protector. So most of the campsites you're going to be going to for travel trailers, they're either going to have a 30 amp or 50 amp service. Get the service you need for your trailer. If it's 30 amp, make sure you get an adapter to go from 50 to 30, because you could be put into a 50 amp post, and if you don't have the right adapter, you don't have power for the weekend. But for 20 bucks, you can get an adapter and you're all good. But the surge protector is really good because if the campground has really shoddy wiring or old wiring, or it has something like an open neutral and an open ground, or the polarities were reversed, these are things that a surge protector is going to be able to tell you, hey, there's something wrong with this power, don't connect your trailer. Or if there is an actual surge or like an over voltage or an under voltage coming into the post, it's not going to screw with your trailer. And when I say that, if you were to have a surge that goes through your trailer and you don't have the surge protector in place, you're looking at a blown inverter, which is about $1,000. You're looking at a hot water heater that's gone. You're looking at a lot of stuff, right? And this is typically not damage that's going to be covered by the campground, because you're basically signing a liability waiver form that they're not going to be responsible for that kind of stuff. So get yourself a good surge protector. I think Progressive Industries or Camco, both of these companies make fairly good ones. They're fairly, you can get these things almost anywhere. They're going to cost $200 or $300, but a lot of them come with like a lifetime warranty. And these are some things that they actually come with a metal hasp around them that you can actually put a padlock and lock them, because believe it or not, these things do walk away from your camper. People that don't have them, they see down your post. If you're gone for the day, it's a $200 or $300 item, and it's not uncommon to hear that these things do get stolen, unfortunately. So just make sure you lock it to the post, and hopefully you'll stop any honest thief, right?
Oh, good to know.
And if you going back to those cam locks real quick, I mean they're really not expensive. Your best bet is to get them all key to like. your better bet for security is to get an assortment of keys, depending on how many compartments you have, but your local locksmith can sort you out with those pretty quick too. I know I've sold those before for no more than about $10 a piece. So they're a common item. Anything with a CH series code, so CH501 and CH751 are probably the two most common. But anything with a CH series code is a pretty open source, and stay away from those.
Yeah, so the ones I got are actually the ones I replaced mine with are magnetic locks that have something like 9,000 combinations that are possible. They're about $20 a piece, but they're all. I paid an extra $1.50 to have them all keyed the same. And basically, instead of having, because again, these locks are exposed to the elements year round, so they're going to rust out and all that kind of stuff. So having the magnetic lock means I don't have anything to actually stick a key in. I just have a square face on the outside. The key is actually a square, and there's different combinations available. So again, it's a little bit higher security on something that could otherwise be broken into with a crowbar. So again, it's more peace of mind for me that I know that somebody's not going to walk up and use their key to open up my luggage compartment. Otherwise, yeah, it's just a good investment. It's going to cost you, like $20 a lock, like Alan said there. So
no, the magnetic locks are fantastic. Those are great. It's actually just going to go there, but then you still.
Sorry, when I was looking at them, there was like the typical tumbler lock. There was the bicycle, the round bicycle lock. I forgot what the name of it is, and then you had the tubular lock. Thank you. And then you had the magnetic one. It was like $5 difference between each one. I'm like, at this point, I'm going to pay more in shipping for these things, so I may as well just get the best, right? For $5 in the difference. So, yeah.
No, and they make great sense because it becomes a security through obscurity thing, because I can go try my key in random locks and it'll eventually fit just based on the law of probabilities. Whereas with those magnetic locks, if I don't have that fob, then whatever key I happen to have in my pocket is completely useless.
Right, and the way I say too is that when you put this thing in storage, or if you're on the side of the road or something like that, or even if you're at Walmart, I mean, if somebody has this key, it's just very convenient for them to walk up, unlock the compartment, and is there anything of value in there? I mean, I've got a nice little stainless steel barbecue that could walk away. I've got a DeWalt bag with all my electrical adapters, which, believe it or not, adds up to a few $100. That's something I could easily walk away at that point. But again, I mean, it's probably the same thing as somebody going around a parking lot and trying car doors. If the door is locked, they're probably not going to smash the window. They're probably just going to go to the next car and see if the door's unlocked at that point, right? So
make yourself not the easiest target, and it's time to leave you alone.
Yeah, exactly.
So do you guys have a link you can throw in the show notes just for that magnetic lock?
Yeah, I can source one and throw. Yeah, I'll source one and throw it in. And the very important thing too is that you actually take your cam locks out of your door and measure them properly, because there's, like Alan could tell you, there's like 6 or 7 different sizes, and each manufacturer will use a different size based on the thickness of the door. There's
3/8,
also
5/8, 7/8, inch and 1/8, inch and a quarter, inch and a half, like depending on the thickness of the door.
When I was looking for them, I actually eyeballed them, and then I saw like all the different sizes. I'm like, I better measure this, and sure enough, I actually had to take the cam lock out of the door to get a proper measurement on it, what type of bracket has to go on the back, the actual diameter of the cam lock. So I think it was like 1/2 inch and 5/8 and all that kind of stuff. So make sure you order the right ones, because if not, you're going to be looking at having to order this stuff again, right? So.
Yeah, there are a few little nuances there, and it's your best bet. Yeah, is just take it out, measure every dimension that you can as you're looking at the link that we'll put in the show notes for it, and you'll see exactly what they want to see, and you'll be able to be able to get it out there. Or
I'll throw in a cheat sheet that you can actually print off, and it's actually to scale, so you can actually take the cam lock and then put it against a piece of paper. You actually have to take a tape measure first and measure the little 1-inch line, and if it says 1 inch and your tape measure is right at 1 inch, then you know that you actually printed it to scale. And then wherever you place your cam lock, it's going to tell you, okay, so you've got this diameter, you've got this length, you've got this type of cam, and then you basically just go down the options and you select the right one. So yeah, we'll put that in the show notes for everyone as well. So
awesome, that's handy.
Any other questions? I think Ian had a couple more. Shelter from elements better than a tent. More bear resistant than a tent. Yeah, a little bit more. I'm not in bear country though. So in Eastern Canada, we only have black bears. We don't have grizzlies or Kodiak bears or anything like that. So typically black bears are not an issue for us. But you still want to keep food away, right? So a lot of times people will still have a cooler or have dry goods within a trailer. Just try to keep that thing out of reach of the bears. And It's not uncommon for them to go through a tent. I mean, I can't see them getting into a trailer, but again, these things are built pretty cheaply. So if the bear wants to get in, he might find a way in, right? So.
Yeah, no, I hear you. But at least if something comes up suddenly, meaning like weather and stuff, at least it's better than being in a tent or whatever, and it's already pre-assembled when you get there, which is nice.
And I mean, your comment or your question about pre-packed. Oh, Ian's gone again. Around pre-packed, that's the thing. We went for a camping trip last weekend. We were gone for 3 days. We came back. We spent a little bit of time cleaning it up, doing laundry for all the linens and all that kind of stuff, and then we put everything back in the trailer. And really, if I wanted to leave, I would just have to hook it up to the truck, and I could be gone in 20 minutes. Everything's in there, everything that I need. Pots, pans, utensils, accessories, linens, sleeping bags, pillows, everything's in there. So it's not something you have to pack and unpack as if you were going on like a camping trip. It's all in there. You hook up your truck, you take off, right? There is some preparedness that has to go into it. You have to make sure you have enough propane. You have to make sure that you've got enough food on board. You have to make sure that you know where you're going. Is there going to be a 30 amp hookup? Is there going to be water? Is there going to be sewer? So make sure you know all of this before you leave for the trip. But essentially, if you're of that preparedness mindset, you can leave this packed, and then you can go at a moment's notice, essentially, right? So on Friday afternoon, you don't have to spend a few hours loading your truck up to go on a camping trip. It's all there already. So that's one of the really nice aspects of it.
Oh, that is handy. Shall we move into the podcast challenge?
Yeah. Well, I figured out that something guys can do this like a low-cost item is learn how to back up a trailer into a parking spot. It's actually a skill set because, I mean, if you think, go ahead.
That might not be as low cost as you think.
Well, no, actually, that's better to do it now with like a Jeep or actual RV. So if you get like a little quad trailer or something and actually practice backing stuff up with like a little marathon 10-foot aluminum trailer or something, much better to learn how to do it now than when you're actually like parking the high value item.
And actually, when I was thinking about that, you can go to U-Haul and rent a tandem axle trailer for $20 a day and learn how to park that. So,
yeah. And it is a thing, like it takes a lot of getting used to. Once you've got it mastered, it's pretty easy. But like whether it be a boat, an RV, or whatever, get some practice in ahead of time. And it's just one of those things you can learn ahead of time and just be done with it. So
it took me a lot of cursing, a lot of swearing, a lot of practice. Yep.
And just as a thing for people that are like never done with anything with RVs before, I just threw a link in there for maybe something to consider. Like there's actually like they don't always have to be giant fifth wheel trailers. There's actually a micro RV I threw in here. It's kind of neat. It's not cheap because it's brand new, but just so you can get a picture of it, it's 500 pounds and it tows behind pretty much anything, including a motorcycle. So it's you can start small, work your way up, and give it a try.
You know what's funny though is so the dealership where I bought my trailer again, I said at the beginning of the show I paid it like $21,000 for 1 year used one. But I'm looking at the price of the trailer you put in the show link and it's $7,990, and I'm like,
it's crazy. But eventually those things will be used, right? And I mean, well, of course, once it drives off a lot, it's going to take a pay cut or a price hit. So, I mean, give it a couple of years, and one of these micros might be around for like $5,000-6,000 before you know it.
And there's actually a huge movement and like subculture around teardrop trailers, and a lot of them are home built. And people like share plans online, and there's these. Maybe not with COVID-19 right now, but like there's a lot of big meetups that happen during the summertime. We'll have like anywhere from 300 to 500 teardrop trailer owners that are going on a rally together, and they're just sharing tips and tricks on how to maximize the amount of space. Because again, you're looking at something that's maybe 5 feet by 7 feet of living space. Whereas earlier in the show we're talking about the one I bought that's 29 feet. Well, that's nice, but again, there's a lot of disadvantages there, right? I mean, it's not something you can move easily. You're not stealthy at all. You're not going to outrun anything. So there's a lot of cons there as well. So. And gas. So don't get me started on how much gas this takes to. We thought we were going to save some money instead of renting cottages to actually get a travel trailer, but I think just in the amount of campsite fees we've ponied up for this summer, we're way over our budget for camping, and that doesn't include me hauling this thing across the province either. So
sometimes the purchase price is the cheapest price.
Yep.
Just like buying a boat.
Yeah.
Oh yes.
Yeah. Cool.
All right, let's move into upcoming events.
There are no upcoming events. COVID has canceled the world.
Yeah, that's pretty much it.
We're still unsure about TACCOM 2020. We've got fingers crossed. If it is a go, we will be there with proverbial bells on. I promise that I will actually wear bells if we can go there, if that's what it takes to get us there. There is a link in the show notes for tickets, and that will be the most up-to-date information as well as to whether it's happening or not. So if it is a go, we will have our whole crew there to along with the rest of the Pro Gun Canadian podcast network that will be broadcasting and meeting and greeting, and I'm sure imbibing in more than a few adult beverages. So come see us and say hi if that does happen.
Absolutely. But please show up with more than just bells on, Alan.
Oh, no.
Just bells.
Just bells. A lot of them, but just bells.
Okay, as long as it's a lot of them. All right, let's move into some shout-outs.
Quick shout out to my cousins that are, I think they're listening. They may have tuned out at this point because, that's what they do. We spent the weekend camping. It was good times and great memories, and I still don't feel great, but that's all right.
As for myself, I just want to give a shout out to Melanie at Northern Elite Firearms. She was able to do a custom order for me, which is something that nobody else was able to get so far. So that's great. Should be on the way soon. Also, a quick shout out to Travis at Silvercore. I meant to do it last week, but I think I was either missing or cut off. And I think something happened last week. Anyways, so that's right. So we can check out the podcast on iTunes, the Silvercore podcast. It's a nice little podcast for all sorts of things outdoors. And also just a quick shout out that he does still do PAL training in the Greater Vancouver area. So if you are interested in that, contact Travis at Silvercore.
Awesome. So for email and iTunes reviews, the inbox has been a little bit quiet since last episode. We had quite a few emails to read last episode, but everybody disappeared. So I got to read them out and comment on them. But this week, quiet. So is what it is. I guess we're still pricks.
We made fun of the guy that made fun of they called us pricks.
Yeah, I think we're still pricks.
Yeah, I think we are.
Yeah, but that's okay.
Just own it. It's good.
Yeah, So we're a bunch of pricks on a podcast, and so with that and us being a whole bunch of pricks, I'm going to bring episode number 75 of the Canadian Prepper Podcast to an end. You can find the podcast on iTunes, Podbean, Spotify, or, of course, your favorite podcast app. Please help us out and submit a review. You got to come up with something more original than calling us pricks, though. That's been done. And, of course, it helps other people find us.
We do record these shows live on Facebook and YouTube. If you want an early peek at the show, please subscribe to the YouTube channel, Canadian Prepper Podcast, and click that little bell that gives you notification when we are going live. If you want to find me directly, I'm on Instagram at ppswo or here by email, Alan at prepperpodcast.ca. That's Alan with one L.
And for me, I can be reached at hfxprepper@gmail.com or Hugues at prepperpodcast.ca. I also have my own YouTube channel. Just search for HFX Prepper on YouTube.
I think HFX Prepper needs to do a video on his fifth wheel bug out kit.
I know. I'm lacking videos.
All right, you can reach Ian directly by emailing me at theislandretreat@gmail.com. And you can also find me on Canadian Patriot Podcast on iTunes and YouTube. There you can find us discussing why government waste in society triggers me enough to make me want to go out and buy an RV and head off into the woods.
All right. And please check out Rapid Survival. That's rapidsurvival.com. You can get me there on the live chat while you're buying some prepper gear. Unfortunately, I do not sell RVs. So you're going to have to look elsewhere for those. You can also email me at feedback@prepperpodcast.ca. So thanks for joining us. And until next time, be prepared, stay safe,
and keep learning.